What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the DK Garage. I'm Jeremy, that's Joe, and this is the Race Day Rundown.
It's the Daytona 500. We've already had a lot of fun this week. We started with our box battle, where I think you probably had a little bit more success than I did because you hit both of these beauties right here in front of us, a Haley Deegan and Natalie Decker Blue Hyper Parallel Prism. If you want to check out the box break, that link's above. Also, if you want to become part of the DK Garage crew, which is our weekly DraftKings contest that we have every week, drop your DraftKings tag below. We'll get you added. It's free to join, and we have a lot of fun. Always nice to have new members there.
Yeah, absolutely. So what we're going to do is we will be giving away these two cards. We will explain it down below, and we will also explain it at the end of the video. But here's the deal. We know you guys are really here for DraftKings and really just to make extra money by watching NASCAR, and that's what we're here to provide. We got a lot of good stuff for you guys this year. We're really excited about it. We've changed up a few things. We know you're going to like it, but we need to set the stage. We're at Daytona. This is the 500. That means there's 200 laps, 2.5 mile track, 140 potential performance points, but we know throughout history, those usually get kind of evenly distributed throughout the field, but they will play a part. We'll get into that. The stages, 65, 65, 70. I think this could be really important, more so in other years, which we will get into a little bit here in a second, but we see these cars already based on the duels and practice. If you lose the draft, this could end your 500. So this is going to be a very different 500, I believe, than what we've seen in the past. The last time we were here, Ryan Blaney won. The last time we were here for the 500, Michael McDowell pulled out a shocker. Amazing, amazing win. This is the best race of the year. This is the Super Bowl of NASCAR. Let's get into it. What are you, based on what you've seen with practice, with qualifying, with the duels, what we've seen so far, what kind of race are you expecting? And the reason why I'm kind of asking is because we're going to have our impact scores. We're going to go over that. We'll explain all that here in just a second. But when I was looking at yours and mine, I realized I think we see this race potentially playing out a little differently. What are you expecting from the Daytona 500 this year with the new cars?
Well, we have a lot to unpack there. There are a lot of unknowns with this next-gen car, and that's a heated question because they're just to say, hey, I'm coming out and expecting this. Nobody can tell you that, and if they are saying that they're able to tell you then it's probably not solid advice because there are a lot of unknowns out there. We've got issues with Brad Keselowski's team that just took down both duels with the way that their tires or their wheels were impounded. There are obstacles. There's new things for everyone. So coming out here, we're looking at previous data. We're looking at a lot of different variables, some that are newer. But I'm really excited about it because I'm expecting kind of a lot like what you've seen in the past, but maybe a little bit more, I guess, aggressiveness potentially. I don't know if it's going to be very early or very late, but it's going to be fun to watch. I don't know how it develops.
So NASCAR with the previous gen, the Gen 6 car, they were making constant tweaks throughout the life of that car to make as much pack racing as possible. They want 2 wide, inches off each other's bumper for the entire 200 laps if possible. So far, personally, I'm not seeing that we're going to get that kind of race based on what the duels kind of perform or how they kind of played out and what we've seen kind of some of these cars do in practice. Do you think that we're going to see that same sort of double wide action throughout the race? Or do you think maybe a little more how I'm kind of seeing it as we might see some 4-car tandems kind of break off? And again, how I kind of mentioned earlier, if you happen to get shuffled out of that pack early on a restart and you lose the draft, could that potentially end your 500?
It could if it's not, if the drivers aren't as aggressive early, where they do get into a situation where there are a couple 4-car, 6-car packs that break away. We've seen Toyotas in the past where they will hang back towards the back of the pack and ride back there for a good while. And with Denny Hamlin and some of these other drivers starting in the back, I don't know if that's the way that they'll anticipate starting, and see if it is a strategy where we do see some of these guys determine, hey, I want to be up front all the time, and they figure out who their drafting partners are early and try to set themselves up for the win. And I don't know if it's going to be something where we see Kyle Larson and Alex Bowman teammates at the front and the whole race. We don't know if this is going to be a traditional race in that sense, but there are a lot of parameters that make this a little bit different than Daytona races in the past.
So I guess let's start getting into it. Because one of the things I kind of want to ask you, but I think we maybe need to set the stage a little bit better, is how much do you think manufacturing is going to play into this? And I guess, do you plan to build your lineups around manufacturing, meaning a Ford stack, maybe not a Penske stack, but a Ford stack, a lot of Ford drivers, or Chevy or Toyota, because of how we've seen the drafting work so far within the duels? That may be the only way some of these guys can actually perform well and maybe even put themselves in potential, or in contention to win. What do you think the chances of seeing a Ford 1, 2, 3, 4 finish, Toyota, Chevy, that kind of thing? Do you think we're going to see more manufacturers work together even tighter with this new car? Because something we hadn't mentioned yet, and I think it's worth mentioning, I know we won't have to do this for very long throughout the season, but with this new car, there is like a parts shortage. A lot of these guys are worried about wrecking these cars. And I think, especially from like a DraftKings, as you build your lineup, I think you kind of have to consider that. That's my point of view. You may think differently. But I saw a lot of drivers be way more conservative during the duels. If they were qualified up front and are now starting in the back because they had to, play it safe, it seemed like a lot of drivers were okay with that. Whereas we don't normally see that with any dual action. These guys, they want to win every time they're in the car, so they're going to try to get the best finish possible. I didn't really see that from most drivers, honestly, other than like Joey Logano, who was willing to actually wreck his new car to try to get that dual win. What do you kind of think we might see from that manufacturer's point of view?
I think we'll see them working together from that sense. It's always really played that way in super speedway racing. I think that basically you see the Toyotas work well together, you see the Fords work well together, and the Chevy guys work really well together. And you've got two Chevys at the front with Larson and Bowman, and I think that they can work together. And those two guys, and especially Larson, he's going to be aggressive. He's going to want to lead every lap. He's going to be as fast as he can, as often as he can, and that's just the way he always races. So if he's out front and doing a lot of blocking, and it's not the duels, this is the Daytona 500, and I think some of these drivers that will be more aggressive than others, like Ricky Stenhouse Jr., you'll see these guys really want to lead some laps in this race, and I think it is going to cause some accidents. We haven't seen some of the accidents to the extent that we thought we might see in the Clash and in the duels and things like that, because people are trying to still figure out the car, trying to do all of this. But this is the Daytona 500. There are going to be accidents, and I think strategy is key whenever you look at it. I do think a lot of aggressive natures will come into the mix, and there are going to be accidents. I really do believe that we will see them, and we'll probably see them often. Even though it is the new car, people are still going to put their nose out there, and there still are going to be situations that arise because of the aggressiveness of even one or two drivers.
Yeah. Interesting. See, that's where I thought you would be kind of coming from. I'm going to just be upfront. I think it's going to be a little bit more conservative, but we'll see that reflect in our DK impact scores. So let's set the stage. Let's get into some drivers, because that's what everyone's here for. This is the Daytona 500. There's some big contests on DraftKings. There's likely to be a lot of new players playing this weekend. What we're about is helping you grow your bankroll by any means necessary. we use a lot of different tools. We use DraftKings. We use Prize Picks. We're a big fan of Prize Picks. We'll do bets, single bets, head-to-heads, wherever we feel like the best place to kind of put our money that week for that race. That's what we're about. Prize Picks threw us a little curveball today when we got to see their new projections come out. It's different than how it was last year. Once I realized how their new scoring is, I went from really excited to play Prize Picks to extremely excited to play Prize Picks. And the main reason why is they are going to be using the same scoring, or at least very, very, very similar. I don't want to say the same, but very similar scoring to DraftKings. So that means place differential is huge. That means if you start, 10th, you finish 9th, you're going to get 1 extra bonus point because you finish 1 spot ahead. You start 10th, finish 11th, you're going to lose 1 point because you are 1 spot further back, right? Fastest laps, those are worth those are worth 0.45 points, correct? And then the laps led, I think, are worth a quarter of a point. I think that's how it works. Either way, we know how it is in our projections, but those also play a point, or those are very important, but not as much at Daytona because generally we see a lot of different leaders, and the guys who run the fastest laps aren't usually in first place. They're in the draft. They're getting extra help along the way. So those are usually distributed throughout the field. That's how our projections work. But because Prize Picks is now mirroring DraftKings, we feel our projections are even better for Prize Picks. So we're really excited. First driver we need to talk about is probably the best play on DraftKings, Denny Hamlin. Came close to winning after a crazy day or crazy year last year. Would have been his 3rd in a row. He's already won 3 here at Daytona. 10,500. He starts 30th. What's your feeling on Denny Hamlin for this 500?
He's going to be chalk. He's going to be one of the highest owned drivers, and I think because of that, you can fade him completely and be contrarian, and if he gets in an accident or has we've seen Denny Hamlin multiple times. We saw it in his was it the duel whenever he spun out and entering pit road. Those kind of situations with Denny Hamlin happen. But if he is where he's at, 30 points, that place differential is key. If he is able to get a solid finish or win this thing, he's a must-have lock in your lineup with his ability at super speedways, especially here at Daytona. I've got him at a 9.5 with my impact score because I think he's going to have a big impact on this race. I really don't want to fade him, but I see how there are some other drivers down below that might make a case to contend with him.
So you mentioned you gave him a 9.5. That is our impact scores. We each give our scores, and then we combine it for our overall DK impact. That's kind of our factorization of a lot of different things: starting position, track history, just overall performance, what we think that they can do. You get to see our scores separate. So if you kind of lean one way, you can kind of tail one of us, or you can kind of see where we land just together in the middle. Denny Hamlin is the best, in my opinion, the best current super speedway driver, especially at Daytona. In the last 6 races, he's had an average finish of 8.3 with his 2 wins, 4 top 5s. This is just unheard of. You start looking at all over this recent results, everyone has terrible finishes here because everything's so close, and one accident, one person's mess up is now your end of the day. Somehow he's avoided that more often than not. That's why you gave him such a high score. The scoring is 1 to 10. I forgot to mention that. You're right there. You're almost at a 10. And honestly, I'm right there with you. I'm going to be at a 9.5 as well on Denny Hamlin. He will be the highest owned driver. This is what you were kind of hoping for with him, but it's so good. I think a lot of people are going to be on him. You're right. I think running a few lineups, fading him, could end up paying off because he has been known to make mistakes getting on pit road. He may be trying to do too much. I can't suggest that happens, though. This guy knows how to survive wrecks. He knows how to get up front. Denny Hamlin is an amazing play. Is there anything else you want to say about Hamlin before we move on to Chase Elliott?
I think Denny Hamlin's a solid play. A lot of other people will be have a lot of exposure to him. But before we get too far, I want to let everyone know that we're not going to talk about every driver, but every driver's DK impact score is going to be available in our race guide. That is going to be free. It's part of our Patreon membership. But if you want to take an exclusive look, take a look at our Patreon. It's there for free. It's got every driver listed in their score. A lot of other information. We've got our driver spotlight and a lot of information that will be more relative as we get further down. Is it going to be our driver pool and some of the core driver plays that we have? That's all available in there as well. It's a great digital visual magazine pretty much to go along with all this information.
Well, I would say, to kind of summarize what you're telling them, I think that the race guide is great for people who don't have a ton of time to do a bunch of research. They don't have time to get into all the numbers. They can see kind of where we think teams coming into it, where their power rankings are. That doesn't mean as much for this race, but as we get into the season, we're watching every race. We're watching every lap, or almost every lap. There's obviously a ton of them, but we're putting all that information into these really easy to understand. Like you said, a digital magazine. So power rankings, our full impact scores on there. We have driver spotlights just to make it a little easier. But if you are that person who wants to have more information, we do put out our garage thoughts. It's just a digital digital spreadsheet, essentially. Everyone's got one. We've got it too. That way you can get into the numbers a little bit more, because you might hear us talk about someone, but you want to learn a little bit more why we feel that way. We provide that. We're going to have Daytona information, super speedway informations. Our projections will also be there. So if you're one of those person who likes to mass enter DraftKings contests, we have our projections on there. You want to put it in an optimizer, go for it. Tweak it a little bit. Make it unique to your own. But we do all the hard work for you guys. So we have kind of a couple different ways that you can take advantage of all the work that we put in throughout the week. But that being said, I think one of the favorite plays by most fan standard is going to be Chase Elliott. He is the most popular driver many years in a row now. Honestly, a pretty good super speedway driver too. He was in, I think he finished second last year when McDowell won. He was in contention. I think if they didn't throw the caution flag, I think Elliott actually had the momentum and would have beat McDowell to the start-finish line. Didn't matter. He's starting 11th. He qualified, I think, 5th. Duels kind of changed it up a little bit. He's got a fast car. His team looks fast. He's 10,400 on DraftKings. Where are you going to be at with Chase Elliott this week?
I landed on a 7 with my impact score because I think you can have some exposure to him in GPP or in the larger tournaments. But as a cash game play where I really like to play, I don't want to have too much of him because he starts too high up. There are ways to fit him in, and you will be a little bit different. So in that larger tournament play, I think he's fine to play with. But the name of the game is going to be place differential, because we do anticipate at least one wreck usually, and that will wipe out who knows how many cars. So these guys that are starting in the back that have an opportunity to, I guess, gain positions based on other cars wrecking out, that's typically how you get solid finishes at Daytona and at Talladega. It's these super speedway tracks. I think there's a lot of other drivers below him that have a better path to value than Chase Elliott. But 7 is not a bad way to look at it, because I think there are ways to get him in some lineups.
I'm going to 7 as well. Kind of ditto what you just said. But Chase Elliott and the next guy that we're going to talk about, the pole sitter, the defending champ, Kyle Larson, right? He is not going to be, he's starting first, like I said. He's 10,200. Pricing on DraftKings for Daytona and Talladega, they never matter. You don't ever think about salary. You're going to be playing some cheap guys, because that's going to usually be the strategy that pays off. The reason why I'm going a little bit more into this is normally, unless it was maybe Denny Hamlin, you would never consider doing anything with the pole sitter at Daytona because you normally end up wrecking, and if they wreck, they're going to finish 30th or something like that. That being said, this is my point of view. This is where I feel like we're a little bit different. My impact score with Kyle Larson is at a 7.5. You're at a 5. I'll let you explain your 5. I don't necessarily think Kyle Larson is the best play for DraftKings, but I think he's a sneaky play because I know he will go lower owned, and I think we will see more conservative racing. So he has a chance to lead a lot of laps early if people aren't being super aggressive to try to take that lead. Let's just click off laps. Let's get towards the end of the race. He's obviously good enough to maintain a solid finish. He gets 10th, something like that. It's not the best for DraftKings, but where I'm going with this, on Prize Picks, they gave him a projection of 19.5. Based on what we think that he can do, before we even saw Prize Picks numbers, our projection of Kyle Larson is around 30. I think if you're a fan of Kyle Larson and you want to use him and play him in ways to help you grow your bankroll, I think DraftKings is certainly risky. It could pay off, though not likely. I think Kyle Larson is a slam dunk on Prize Picks with where he's currently projected at, because he doesn't need to finish that great and do that much to hit that number. Where are you kind of thinking? I already said you're at a 5, but what's your thoughts on Kyle Larson?
Well, you sold me completely on that angle. He's definitely in my Prize Picks bucket, but less likely with my impact score being a 5 to be in any of my DraftKings lineups, because place differential, like we talked about, is going to be key. He does have potential to get a lot of laps led if this race goes more traditional style, but I don't think that that's going to play out, and I don't want to take those risks in that environment. So I've got him at a 5 there. I think Ryan Blaney, the next guy on the list, is very similar. He's starting 7th. He's a previous winner here. But I think he's going to find some more value over there on Prize Picks as well, because there's not as many the over on Prize Picks, because they've got him at 26.5 points needed to hit at that point, and I think he's got the car to finish in the top 5, but is he going to be there and reach it on the DraftKings side? I don't think so, because there are so many things that happen. I think they're having a little bit more exposure in a 1 or 2, 3 driver setting over there. Allows you to shape the scene a little bit better. You can take a little bit more risk with one driver over another, rather than putting a risky driver in a 6 lineup build there at DraftKings. And this is where I think he finds a little bit more value along with Larson.
Yeah, I'm going to be at a 7 on Blaney. And if anyone's kind of caught on by how I've kind of talked about some of these drivers already, I'm kind of planning on playing some of these talented super speedway drivers regardless of finishing position or starting position, because I don't know if we really will see that chaos that we typically see. I know you still think that, and I 100% can see that happening, but again, the situation, I could see some of these teams being a little bit more conservative, understanding, yes, this is the Daytona 500. If we're in contention, late in the race to go for it, fine, we go for it. But otherwise, let's have a clean race. Let's move on and let's start the real season. Let's build up our car inventory, and then we can be more aggressive throughout the year. That's kind of the viewpoint I'm coming from with some of these ratings. So I'm a little higher on Blaney than you are. Someone that we are identical on that I don't think you have to worry about regardless is Joey Logano. He's going to be scored from the 20th starting position. He did wreck in the duels, like I mentioned. He had to go to a backup car, so he will technically be starting in the rear of the field, but based on scoring, starting 20th, that's a ton of PD upside with Logano. Like I said, I think he was leading going into turn 4 on the 500 last year. He knows how to get up front. I know he can do it again. I'm at a 9 on Logano. I really like what he's got going on. I really like what Ford overall has going on. Logano is as close to a lock as you can really get, in my opinion, at a super speedway race.
Yeah, I think I've given him a 9 just for all those reasons that you just went over, and he's a great fade to Denny Hamlin. Plug him in play of him, and you'll be a little bit different. I think the ownership is going to be drastically leaning heavier on Denny Hamlin when you can get just as much value out of Joey Logano, and he's going to start in the back because of that dual situation. He might hang out there, just ride around for a while, and then put it out there towards the end. And he's been in those situations where it hasn't gone his way. He's ended up on his roof a couple times, it seems like, in those situations. But starting where he is, lots of potential. I like him a lot.
All right, someone who kind of surprised me a little bit because, excuse me, he surprised me a little bit when I started looking at the deeper numbers, when you start looking at the bigger picture of the stats, and that's Kyle Busch. His average finish over the last 6 races here at Daytona is 22nd. He only has 1 top 5. That also includes that single top 10. He's had 3 top 15s, so 50% there. But he does get out front, averaging 15 laps led. Only a couple fastest laps. Again, those really get distributed throughout the field. But he has the second highest driver rating behind his teammate Denny Hamlin. His driver rating is at 97.9 compared to Hamlin's 98.3. That is a very high driver rating despite his average finish of 22nd. So, I know we've kind of talked about him a lot last year. We know Kyle Busch is at least top 5 most talented drivers currently in the Cup Series. But at Super Speedway, starting 10th, 9,600, what are your thoughts on playing Kyle Busch for this race?
I laid it on a 7 with my impact score because I think he falls into no man's land. Where he's priced, where he starts, with his upside, he's just kind of there. So I don't really want too much exposure to him at all. If I'm going to play him, it'd be in a DraftKings scenario where he's in a tournament play just to be different. I don't want a lot of exposure, but a lot of people won't want a lot of exposure because he doesn't have a lot of upside.
You're right there. And someone who's not part of mine, and I don't think he's part of your official Prize Picks plays, he could be, based on his Prize Pick projection, also a solid play if you think that he's able to keep it clean and not get caught up in that late wreck or the big wreck that takes him out. Because if you're just judging off of his driver rating, he's a top 5 driver here. You can't really deny that. I mean, driver rating, like, that's, you got to put in some really solid laps over the course of these races to do that. Our projection, even at a modest, not favorable for DraftKings projection, looks really good on Prize Picks. I'll probably be dabbling a little bit with Kyle Busch there, but the next guy who is one of my official Prize Picks plays is William Byron. I think he's going to be highly owned on DraftKings. He's going to be a really popular play overall. He's a previous Daytona winner. He starts 23rd, 9,400. Where are you at on Byron?
Oh, I like him too. He's going to be somebody that you can really build a lot of lineups around and feel confident about because he has the upside. He's led laps here. He's a good speedway driver, super speedway driver. Everything points to wanting to play him in every environment. I've got him at an 8 on our impact score because I think he can find a way to really impact this race in a lot of different ways. He is one of my picks. I've got him on the over at Prize Picks as well. So there's a lot of ways that you can use William Byron this week.
I'm at the over as well, and I'm at a 9 on my DK impact score. Really like what Byron has as far as upside. But again, you never know how these things will go, so definitely not a lock by any means. Kevin Harvick, next guy that we're going to talk about, 9,200. He starts 22nd, essentially right next to William Byron. Not bad as a super speedway driver, but also similar to Kyle Busch, doesn't always get those finishes, gets caught up in some wrecks. I like him a little bit more. I'm at an 8.5. Are you going to be playing much Kevin Harvick this week?
I've got him at an 8 as well. Those Fords look like they've worked together strong. I think he can get the job done because he has so much experience at super speedway tracks. I think he's somebody that can be kind of sneaky. He does have a lot of upside, just like William Byron. They're really interchangeable in a lot of ways this week. I like him a lot.
So this might be the biggest difference of any driver that we have as far as our impact score. The next guy I'm going to talk about is a guy who just set a record for front row starts for Daytona. He's got, or for the 500, 5 in a row. 5 in a row for front starts for Alex Bowman. He's starting second next to Kyle Larson. 8,600. Great at starting, not always the best at finishing. I'm at a 6. I know you're lower. My reasoning for that is, again, kind of going back to I just don't know how much carnage there's going to be throughout this race. If it is more conservative, if he can stay hooked up with his teammate Kyle Larson, if Chase Elliott's able to get up there, maybe even William Byron, it could be a Hendrick sort of just pull away race. That might be enough. I don't think a lot of people are going to play Bowman. I know you're lower, but what's your reasoning for that lower score with Bowman?
Yeah, I landed at a 3 on Bowman because you talked about how he has a lot of data here starting at the front, and his average place differential is negative 11.5 over the last 6 races. That's something in the garage thoughts that really stood out to me, and I think it's just the traditional sense of how this type of racing is done, starting up at the top of the starting grid. There's not a lot of way to get points in the environments that we're playing in. I just don't think there's very many ways that he can achieve value, and unfortunately, this week.
Someone who almost has to do nothing to achieve value is the guy right below him on the DraftKings salary board, Austin Dillon, 8,400. He had an issue. I think he had an issue on pit road with his brother, Ty Dillon, in the duels, where he got fuel but didn't get tires. He had to pit in late or something like that. Regardless, he has a fast car, but he will be starting from the 36th starting position. Massive upside for a guy who has won the Daytona 500 a few years ago. He just seems to be one of those guys who finds a way towards the front late in races. I got him at a 9 as my impact score, but he is for sure going to be one of the more popular plays on the slate and definitely highly owned with my lineups too.
Yeah, I've got a 9.5. He's going to be chalk, but there's good reason for that chalk, and he's going to be one of the staples in a lot of lineups. I think because of that, you can fade him, but be careful when you do. If you don't have any exposure to him, it might not be a fun day. And I think based on what we see, it sets up nicely for him because of all that place differential. We set him up as one of the checkered flags in our driver spotlight in our race guide. That's going to be fun to watch and see how he really takes this next step with the next-gen car. I think he's somebody to watch all year, somebody else to watch for sure in this setting. Bubba Wallace, he's 8,300 starting 16th. He's really in a solid position to find some value with that price tag in DraftKings. I think you can also look over at Prize Picks at the over potentially on him. He's really, really strong.
Yeah, he will be my official one of my official Prize Picks plays. I have him at the over there. At the time, putting the numbers in, they have him scored at 29.5. I think that's fairly easy for him to do. He is one of the better drivers. Obviously, he gets caught up in a wreck that can go sideways. But, man, I think his first 500 start, he finished second with a team that should be quite a bit worse than what he currently has. He finally got his first win at a superspeedway last year. It was Talladega, but it's still a win, and it's still a superspeedway race. So, really was not too surprising there. I'm at an 8 on Bubba Wallace. I think he's playable both DraftKings and Prize Picks, and maybe even worth a single bet too, just straight up for the win, because I'm not quite sure what his odds are right now, but I'm sure you can get him at pretty nice odds.
Brad Keselowski is somebody a lot of people are going to be talking about because he was a winner at the duel, and then also the wheels issue that has arisen. But I think based on what we're looking at, he's got that higher starting position. It's going to be challenging for him to reach value there, but I think with some of the new games offered over there at Prize Picks, he at 20.5 laps led going on the under. We talked about how a lot of things happen in these races, a lot of lead changes, a lot of different things play into that. I'm going on the under on those 20.5 laps over there.
Wow, okay, that's interesting. I like that. Yeah, I think it's tough for Brad to be playable on DraftKings. He can do it. He's great on super speedway races. I think he has 6 total wins, but those are mostly on Talladega. He's a sneaky play, but for me, I'm at a 6.5. I think he's playable, like you said, but not great. But Prize Picks seems to be a pretty good option for him if you like Brad this week. Someone I think is going to be really interesting. I think he's likely to be right up there with ownership with Hamlin and Austin Dillon is Eric Almirola, 8,000. Just lost the draft in the duels and went a couple laps down. Now he's starting 38th. He's won a super speedway race. He's usually pretty good here. He seemed to be the only guy, at least in qualifying, to have speed out of Stewart-Haas Racing. I think he's a solid play. I'm at a 9, but know that he will be higher owned, especially, I mean, I think in all game styles, both single entry, head-to-heads, tournaments, everything, he's going to be sprinkled all over the place.
There's good reason. He looked real fast, and unfortunately he lost the draft in his duel, which impacted the way he's starting. 38th is where he's officially starting, so that offers a lot of place differential. I'm at a 9.5 because I think he's going to have a huge impact.
One of my, I guess he's kind of my growing sort of driver that I'm really just, like, I just want him to do good. I can't wait for him to get his first win. It's Tyler Reddick. 7,700. He starts 15th. I don't know if he's going to be able to really get that win here. It's just, I don't know if it really favors his driving style. But, man, I'm excited for this guy's young, early career. He's been close a couple times already. Man, he looked so good at the Clash before his car broke on him. It wasn't his fault by any means. I don't know if he gets a win here at Daytona, but I think Tyler Reddick will get a win somewhere, maybe multiple wins this year. RCR looks good. They look like they got speed with this new car. I really like what I'm seeing from Tyler Reddick, that 8 team. I'm going to give him an 8 as my impact score.
I've got him at a 7. I think he's kind of in no man's land whenever it comes to building lineups, but I think in a GPP big tournament, he's great to have some exposure to kind of be a little bit different. He offers a lot of upside. He can be aggressive in the right situations. I do like him a lot in that setting.
All right, we're going to talk about a few more drivers here. Try to round out your lineups. Again, if you want to see their full list of impact scores, we got that in our race guide. You'll see the link down below. If you want more data on all these guys, that's going to be in the Garage Thoughts.
But this is where it really gets – this is where the money's made. These decisions in these lower price tiers, especially this week, I think, is going to be where the difference is made, though.
Right. So I think one of my personal favorite plays this week, but he's got to keep it clean, and I think he can do that. Justin Haley, 7,400. He starts 25th. The new official, new chartered team in NASCAR, Colleague Racing. They've been doing great stuff in Xfinity. Justin Haley has 3 wins or 4 wins with them in Xfinity. He does have a win at Daytona from a few years ago. Didn't necessarily race the win. He kind of got a little lucky with lightning. Win's a win. Not taking anything away from him, but he legitimately is a really good super speedway racer. Colleague seems to have the speed, the cars, to be able to compete with Hendrick, Penske, teams like that, Joe Gibbs. I'm at a 9 on Justin Haley. I'm going to have, I think, a lot of exposure. I hope it doesn't kick me in the butt at the end of the race, but I really like what this team has in store this year. You
know who has the most DraftKings points as an average?
Justin Haley.
In our sample size in the race guy, or in the Garage Lots, it's Justin Haley. He's 64.5 average race points in the DK environment. That's huge. He's somebody that has been consistent. He knows how to really do a great job at these super speedway tracks. I think a lot of people are going to be onto that. Where he is, 25th, that offers a lot of upside. I think he's priced right as well. I've got a 9 as my impact score for him this week.
I don't have much to say about our defending Daytona 500 champion. We know he can find a way at the end. He proved that last year. But starting 6th, 7,200, I'm only at a 5 on McDowell. I don't really know what we're going to see from this team this year with this new car. And even if he's able to maintain that position, will he get enough performance points to pay off the salary? Will he get that finish that he needs? Because if he falls back, it's done. I don't think I'm going to end up with much McDowell, but I know he is a good super speedway racer.
Yeah, he is, and I've given him a 6 because I think you can find ways to get value out of him, and I think potentially going the over on Prize Picks might be one of those routes.
I love this guy. He's a young guy. He's finally in some really good equipment. Ross Chastain, he was doing some good stuff at Chip Ganassi. They're no longer. They folded. They sold their business essentially to Trackhouse Racing. Part owner is Pitbull there. They went ahead and brought Chastain over as their second driver to pair with Daniel Suarez. The Watermelon Man, he's aggressive. He's really good, especially at super speedway races. I think Chastain's going to have a really good year throughout the year. This one's a little tough for me starting 19th. I'm going to give him a 6.5. I think he can perform well. But it is a little risky, and I could see him being one of those guys that makes that move that potentially starts the big one. So I don't know how much I'm going to land on Chastain, but I think he's going to have a good year.
Yeah, I've given him a 7 because I think there's ways in the GPP, larger tournament fields, to really have some fun with him. But in the cash setting, I don't want to have much exposure, if any at all. Cole Custer, 6,530 first. He's somebody that offers some upside too. I think he's somebody that, being with that starting position, being a Ford, if he's in the right situation, he can get the job done.
Yeah. Next driver I think we were going to talk about is Erik Jones. We want to talk about him because he's also a pretty good super speedway racer. Second year with the 43. Starts 13th. He's 6,000. I don't think a lot of people will play him because why would you want to play a guy starting 13th when you can play a guy like Daniel Hemrick for for $1,000 more starting 33rd? I get that, but he finished 4th at the Clash, which surprised the heck out of us because we didn't know what we're going to get with this smaller team with this new car. His teammate, we'll talk about him in a second, Ty Dillon, also looked pretty strong at the Clash, a little too strong, kind of bend the rules a little bit there. But I think Erik Jones could be a nice sneaky play here. Now, we're only giving him a 6. Don't go heavy with him, but I think as maybe that guy that could potentially just take you from a tie at 50th to that upper level, maybe it is a guy like Erik Jones. I think he's a solid play.
6, I've got him in there. I think he's a guy that's really nice to look at in a tournament setting. Not in my cash lineups, but I think that's where you could play him and have a leg up.
I think another guy who'll be highly owned, definitely in my lineups, will be Corey LaJoie, 5,500. I got him in 8.5. I think he's really is one of the best finishing super speedway drivers. Normally that's because his equipment's not the best. He seems to just kind of let everyone wreck and then go up and compete towards the end of the race. He does have a better car this year, so that does make him a little bit more risky in my opinion because he might get in that kind of a wreck. But if he's able to avoid it starting where he's at, given the price tag that he does open up so you can afford guys like the Denny Hamlins, the Joey Logano, stuff like that, Corey LaJoie is a solid play in my opinion.
Yeah, the last 6 races, half of them of his finishes have been top 10s. I think he's just that right mix of upside with that place or starting position and the place differential that he offers, and that $5,500 price tag is very nice. 8.5 is my impact score for him.
All right, so the last guy that we're going to talk about is Ty Dillon, but that doesn't mean he's the last playable guy. There's plenty of guys around here, Noah Gragson, Kaz Garland, blah, blah, blah. We have all those impact scores. We've already mentioned that. You can see all that. We like those, and we will be playing those guys too. But the last guy we're going to talk about is Ty Dillon. 5,200. He starts 26th. I'm at an 8. One of the reasons why we liked him is he was out of the Cup Series last year, but before that, he was in the 13, and he was always priced around where he's at now, and he would usually start around where he's at now and somehow get a top 15, especially at super speedway races. He knows how to get it done. He has a better car, in my opinion, than what he had at that time a couple years ago. If he's able to keep it clean and not jump the restarts like he did at the Clash, and get penalized, I think Ty Dillon is going to be a pretty high finisher, and I think he could be hearing his name throughout the year at different times because I think he's a pretty good driver, just like his brother Austin.
He is, and being where he's at, smashed between Noah Gragson and David Reagan and Kaz Gralla, those guys are going to be really highly owned, as they should, and we've got impact scores for those drivers, but Ty Dillon's going to be able to find value there that might not have been known in some of the other years previously. I think this is where he might be able to get a leg up in this next-gen car with being at Petty GMS now. This is going to be fun to see how all this shapes up. There are a lot of unknowns, but everything that we got done, or we just talked about, it's concise. We want to kind of get everything there quickly so you can digest this, because typically there's not a lot of time with the qualifying happening and all that stuff, so you need the information quickly. That's what we're trying to do here with our rundown and our race guide, so that you can quickly visually see what we just got done talking about. So check out our Patreon for all of that information. But Jeremy, this is fun. There are a lot of things that we get to look forward to with this race. What are you excited about?
Well, I'm just excited NASCAR's back. It's been a long but short off season. It's weird because we knew that was the end of the car. We get this new car, all the testing in the off season, all the changes we've tried to make here in the studio to provide you guys even better content, which we're thrilled about. I guess one of the last things that I wanted to kind of say is, and we talked a lot about Prize Picks, we will be pretty heavy in that this year because of the uncertainty we feel like with these cars until we really know what these drivers are going to do and these teams are going to do. Equipment issues, we saw that play a part at the Clash. I think my focus, and I know I've talked to you about it, your focus is also going to be on playing Prize Picks. If you're interested in playing Prize Picks and you don't already have an account, go sign up, use our promo code GARAGE, and they will match your initial deposit up to $100, 100%. Go get free money, go take advantage of that, and have fun. And that's really all I had to say about this, because man, I am just so excited that we finally get to see these new cars in a real race. What are these guys gonna do? NASCAR's back, baby.
Absolutely. Who's the sleeper pick? Who wins?
Ooh.
Who wins? Because I can tell you mine real quick. I really think Justin Haley is somebody that is going to surprise a lot of people this year in that College car full time. I'm looking to him. Who do you got?
I'm going to go with Tyler Reddick as my sleeper race winner. You just never know with these kind of things. He's aggressive. I like his potential, but we teased it at the front of the video. Let's tell these guys how they can win one of these two cards. We're giving both of them away, 2 winners. What do they need to do, Joe?
All you have to do is hit that subscribe button, take a screenshot, head over to Twitter. We've got a pinned tweet. Go check out that. Drop that screenshot image there, and then tag a friend, let us know who wins the Daytona 500, your pick, and then you're entered. So not very difficult, very quick, very simple. One of you will take home this one of you will take home the Deegan. I'm excited to give it away. I'm excited for the Daytona 500. Let's get this show on the road. For the DK Garage, I'm Joe, that's Jeremy, and we'll see you next week.